So, movie reviews here on Pure 24/7 Radio. We are back. It's been a couple of weeks now, actually, and I'm very pleased to welcome my good friend Andy Godfrey, movie reviewer and film critic extraordinaire.
You always say that, and I always say, okay, I'll take it. Yeah, it has been a couple of weeks, Nathan. You guys were off doing your stuff, climbing hills and all sorts of stuff, and I've been sitting in a nice, cool, air-conditioned cinema
Oh, very
this week.
nice.
I absolutely, because I'm one of these people who don't like this hot weather.
Mm.
I get asthma, and it plays havoc with my asthma. But to sit in a lovely air conditioning. My daughter messaged me yesterday and said, Dad, I'm going back to see Lilo and Stitch. And one of the reasons is because it'll be cool in the cinema. And
That's
she's
fair
from
enough.
Jersey, and it's even hotter down there
Oh,
than it is here, you know. So, but
yeah.
no, to be said, Sandy so much lovely. So, no, it's great. We've got a few films to catch up on.
Mm.
So, if it's okay with you, what I thought we'd do is we do a box office top 10.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I've seen all the films in the box office top 10 apart from one. And there's a reason for that, which we'll come to.
All right, fair enough.
Um, but if we could do that, how does that sound?
That sounds really good. Yeah, top 10. We need to
Okay,
catch up on, as I say, it's been a while, so
it
there's a
has
lot to catch
indeed.
up
I'm
on.
sure you're dying to know about Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible
Yeah, that's true.
happening there, yeah, because there has been a development.
Oh, I'm very excited to hear it.
So when we get to one and two and three, we'll get to that. Just interject, Nathan, at any time because you know me. I'll rattle on. Okay. So box office top 10. I actually want to start at number 25.
Okay.
Because at number 25 in the box office is a film called Ocean with David Attenborough. Now, you mentioned to me that you've always enjoyed seeing David Attenborough's TV programs,
Yeah.
wildlife TV programs, programs about the sea, programs about nature, and so on. And they are terrific, aren't they? I mean, nobody does wildlife or nature like David Attenborough, who
No.
is now well into his 90s. But this is the very first film he's ever made for the cinema. And I want to just say to people, okay, it's number 25 in the box office. Check your local listings, look in your local newspapers, get online, look for a screening of this. Do not wait for this to come to TV because this is a film that has been made specifically for the cinema and for the big screen. So we begin with David Attenborough telling us that he's well into his 90s and that he's always been fascinated with the ocean.
Mm.
And that, in fact, we've explored more of the moon than we have of our oceans here on Earth. And he's standing on a beach on the Isle of Wight looking out to sea. And we then go into a wonderful sequence of underwater photography showing a multitude of sea life and coral and all the beautiful stuff that you can see under the ocean, you know, tropical fish, sharks, whales, you name it, we get to see it on the big screen. And it is stunning and it is beautiful. It is highly detailed. This film has been filmed in high definition. It's everything you could wish for from an undersea expose of what's going on in our oceans. Then suddenly, about 15 minutes in, everything changes. And the film takes a really dark turn because suddenly we get a shot of the ocean bed being churned up by a massive net. And what's happening is deep sea trawlers in various oceans around the world are out at sea trawling, running their net along the ocean bed, trying to catch various breeds of tropical fish or various different forms of plant life, whatever. These ships are huge. Once the net comes back on board, they are processing the fish and the whatever they catch there and then on board. They are packaging it ready for sale on board the ship so that when they land, everything is ready for sale. Now, this is happening in oceans all over the world, and we see it happening in Scotland. We see it happening off the coast of Africa, off the coast of California. We see it happening in the Mediterranean, and it is devastating. It feels like we are watching an earthquake. It feels like we are watching the destruction of the ocean bed. And, you know, great waves of coral, which, by the way, are animals, not plants, which was something I learned watching this. Great waves of coral, great waves of the sea, of seagrass are just being churned up and destroyed purely for profit. Now, the film then takes a dramatic turn in its third section, because in the third section, we see David Attenborough on screen saying, but there is hope. So certain areas of the ocean, including an area I just mentioned, the Channel Islands, around the Channel Islands, have been designated conservation areas. And in those conservation areas, which have been destroyed by mankind and is wretched trawling for, the odd tropical fish that's going to sell for millions of quid, where they have been left alone, they have regenerated themselves. Now, I don't know how many other people were in the screenings thinking the same thing, but I sat there in the cinema thinking, wow, isn't God amazing? Isn't God amazing? Here we are as mankind destroying absolute beauty that he has created, wrecking the ocean. And yet, if you leave it alone, it will regenerate. It will start to grow again. It will start to come back to life again. So he is saying there is hope. And at the end of the film, you're encouraged to write to your MP, you're encouraged to write to the government and say, this deep sea trawling has got to stop because we are wrecking our oceans just purely for profit. And yet, where these conservation areas, there's now one off California, there's one off Scotland, where these conservation areas have been created, the sea is rehealing itself. And it is staggering to see it. So I thought I wanted to flag this up. I wanted to say to people, don't wait till this comes on TV. This is a film that has been made to be seen on a giant screen, on a big screen. You are totally immersed. You feel as if you're underwater. The photography is incredible. They've actually got cameras attached to these nets that are destroying the ocean.
Wow.
How they do it, I don't quite know. But do stay because after the end credits, there is a 15-minute sequence showing you how they made the film.
Oh, very cool.
So sit through the end credits, stay for the end credits, and then you'll get a 15-minute little treat at the end. But it's called Ocean with David Attenborough. He says he's nearly 100. I think he's 90. He's well into his 90s. He says he's never seen anything like this in his life. So go see Ocean. That's at number 25. I wanted to drop that in because it's a film that I saw during the 2 weeks that we were off air, and I just thought it was really worth mentioning.
Yeah, I've always loved
Um,
the David Attenborough films about the nature because honestly, like you say, the photography is stunning. I don't know how they get some of these shots they get. You'll see, I know a cheetah catching is how on earth do they even keep up? It's incredible what they managed to capture. The amount of dedication and work that goes into that. It's
yeah,
mind-boggling.
it really is. I mean, these cameras these days are so small as well.
Mm,
They're absolutely minute, and yet they're shooting in high def.
yeah.
As you say, the nature films are incredible. This rivals Blue Planet, definitely.
Mm,
But as I say, the difference with this one is that it has been made for the cinema.
interesting.
It has been made to see on a big screen with the sound and everything. And you're absolutely right; they're fantastic. So yeah, go see it.
Brilliant.
If you check your local papers, check the internet, see if there's a screening near you. I went to see it. I had to laugh. I went to see it at what's called a silver screening. That's where people over 65 get in cheap and get a free cup of tea and a biscuit. I got in cheap, but I didn't get the free cup of tea and a biscuit because I've still got 2 years to go.
Oh, fair enough. Well,
But
what's next
never
then?
mind. Okay, so we got to number. If we got to number, let's do the top 10.
Yeah, all right
Okay,
then.
so number 10 is a film called Clown in a Cornfield. This is a horror film. Back in the 80s, there was a whole spate of horror films that came out that were dubbed video nasties, and they were banned. And back in the day, long before you were born, we had video rental shops called Blockbuster and other shops, and they were banned from showing these. And then slowly, some of them, the bans were lifted. This is a throwback to those type of horror films. They were just known as video nasties. They were gory, they were horrible, they were senseless. This one's gory, horrible, and senseless, and it really didn't make any sense to me at all. So, clown in a cornfield. Clowns are meant to be scary. I wasn't scared, but it was very gory. Number 9, this is the only one I haven't seen, is Pepper Meets the Baby Cinema Experience. So this is Peppa Pig. This is 4 episodes of Peppa Pig strung together to make a film that makes it worth you taking your kids to the cinema. Now, the reason I would just want to highlight this, even though I haven't seen it, is that, I love the cinema and I want to see people going back to the cinema. I want to see cinemas full. If we can I first went to the cinema when I was 7 years old, as anyone who's read my book will know, to see The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
If you can capture kids' enthusiasm for cinema at a very early age, that's fantastic. To me, that's brilliant. So parents out there, Peppa Pig is at the cinema at the moment. Okay, it's 4 episodes strung together. Peppa meets the baby cinema experience. Please go see it. Number 8 is one of my favorite films of the year. And I want to highlight this, Nathan. This is called The Ballad of Wallace Island. I think we reviewed it before. But this is about a chap who wins the lottery, buys a small island off the coast of Wales, and invites his favourite folk singer to come and do a concert. When the folk singer gets there, he says, "Well, how many people are going to be in the audience?" And the rich millionaire who's won the lottery says, "Well, actually, it'll just be me. It'll just be me." And the folks say, "What? He brought me all this way." And then he invites his second favourite singer, who just happened to used to be in a relationship with his favourite singer. The two of them used to duet.
Of
And he's
course.
invited her in all sorts of awkward situations. This is a comedy. I laughed out loud more than 6 times. It's a lovely, delightful, it's a PG film. Anybody can go and see it and would absolutely. It's a really, really lovely film because at first the relationships are awkward and tense, and you brought me all this way to sing, just to sing to you. I was expecting 200-300 people, you know. No, 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 no. You get paid, and the relationships are fractious, but they start to heal, and these people start to become friends.
Huh.
And it's a really, really lovely, lovely film. It's one of my favorite films of the year. And if it isn't in my top 10 at the end of the year, I will be surprised because I really enjoyed it. It's called The Ballad of Wallace Island. If you're looking for a film to see at the cinema with the family, go see that. Number 7 is not a family film. It's called Final Destination Bloodlines. It's part of these series of films where people have premonitions about bad things about to happen. And this girl has a premonition that a tower is about to collapse. And it does. Or rather, she manages to prevent the tower collapsing. But the people still who would have died still die anyway in strange and mysterious ways after the event. It's very gory. Number 6, Karate Kid Legends.
Ah, yes.
Karate Kid Legends. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. It follows, it is, if you cannot see from the opening 2 seconds what is going to happen and how the film's going to end, you are not paying attention. You are asleep. Okay, it is so obvious. It is plotted so simply. I knew exactly where this was going. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew exactly where we were. But, 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 it's just entertaining. It's really, really solidly entertaining, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Number 5 is a film called Ballerina, which is not about Swan Lake. Um, this is a film about a hired assassin who is going after revenge for after a gang. For revenge, this gang killed her father. Turns out this gang live in a village in the Alps, and every person in that village is also a killer. So you've got one person against the whole village.
Wow.
This is from the John Wick years. So back in the mid 2000s, a film came out called John Wick.
Mm.
John Wick was a retired hired assassin, and the film set slightly in the future. And somebody who John Wick had offended in times past kills his dog, and he goes after them for revenge. That spawned 3 other movies, the last of which was really good. There was a great scene in the last one set in Paris around the Arc de Triomphe where they're in cars shooting at each other, but they're going the wrong way around the roundabout at rush hour. How they staged it, I don't know. Having been to the Arc de Triomphe, it's an absolutely fabulous scene. This is about a young lady who's going after revenge. It's fine. It's there's a I lost count of the body count. I mean, I reckon every 2 seconds somebody dies in this film, and it's on for nearly 2 hours. So, but you know, if you like action, if you like adventure, we're
Yeah.
now getting up into the top 4. So, at number 4, another one of these films that's in my top 10 of the year, and we have talked about this as well, based on a true story of a couple who lost everything, and I mean everything, and decided that they would get to know each other afresh. They would try and sort out their problems by going on a walk. They were going to walk the North Somerset, the North the South, sorry, South Somerset, North Somerset coastal route from Somerset down to Land's End. The couple are played by Jason Isaacs and Gillian Anderson, both of which who are absolutely fantastic in this. Jason has got an illness. that at times prevents him from walking, but he's determined to complete the walk. Um, there's some lovely dialogue between the two. We've got a couple who are in love, but they fall more deeply in love. I think I said to you, this is a prime example of what the marriage vow should be,
Yeah.
you know. And honestly, it's a really, really lovely film, beautiful scenery, places that I recognise from my time growing up in Somerset, places I recognise from Devon and Cornwall. And just the two of them walking and talking and the characters that they meet on their way. Again, a very simple. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? We got two films in the top 10, both of which are incredibly simple. No special effects,
Yeah.
no action, no, but just great dialogue, just great characters, just great scenery. Really, really enjoyable. It's called The Salt Path. It's at number 4. It's hanging on in there against everybody's expectations because there's some really big films out at the moment, and this is quite a minor little film. Really, it's an independent film.
Yeah.
But go see it, folks. And I'm a great advocate of supporting independent cinema. You know, Paramount and Disney and Universal, they and Warner Brothers, they have it their own way, and DreamWorks, they have it their own way. But let's, if we can support independent cinema, British film, really, really good.
That's brilliant.
Now,
On that one,
here's
if I may just
got
mention on that one, I do love films like that where, like you say, it's really simple, really slow, really gentle. As I mean, I do enjoy big blockbusters, lots of action, lots of like interplanetary wars and such like that. Big sci-fi films. But stuff like that is really, really enjoyable because it strips everything back, and you watch something that's really entertaining, but actually just the focus is on the people, the dialogue, the scenery. That is wonderful. And there's a few films like that which I'd say, like you, they're up there with my absolute favorites, alongside some really big blockbusters. Really simple, really gentle, not a huge cast, but just a really lovely film, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And this hasn't got a huge cast. This is basically centering on two people and the few people they meet bump into on their walk. And
Oh,
I mean, you're absolutely right. It feels so real. This is based on a book. The couple in question, the real life couple, were on set for some of the filming, and Gillian Anderson and Jason Isaacs were going over to them saying, "Have we got your characters right?
that's
Are we
wonderful.
acting this right?" So that's wonderful. So you know that there's a degree of authenticity
Yeah.
about this film, and honestly, I'm so pleased to see it at number 4. I was thrilled to see The Ballad of Wallace Island at number 8, and to see this at number 4. Just terrific, and like you say, you can walk into this. You're not going to be offended. You're not going to have to cover your ears because there's some bad language. You're not going to have to cover your eyes because there's something gory or whatever. Just really, really, really lovely. And Gillian Anderson, as I think I said to you during her days on The X-Files, was voted the most beautiful woman in the world.
Yes.
I mean, she has aged gracefully. I still think she's a very beautiful woman, but in this, she looks so unglamorous. Dirt in her fingernails, dirt
Yeah.
all over her face. And she really threw herself heart and soul into this, as did Jason Isaacs. And honestly, um, I just really loved it.
Yeah.
Really
Brilliant.
loved it. So now here's to answer your question. Lilo or
Ah.
Stitch or Mission Impossible at number 3? Did Mission Impossible after half term pick up? What do you reckon?
Oh, I'm guessing maybe a little bit, but I presume it hasn't quite beat Lilo and Stitch. That's my guess.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. Still at number 3 is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning,
Wow.
and still at number 2 is Lilo and Stitch.
Crazy.
That's probably because my daughter keeps going back to see it. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, the first 45 minutes is boring. And then suddenly out of the blue, Tom Cruise in his underwear is in a sinking submarine, running out of oxygen under the ice. And you're gripping the edge of your seat and you're going, wow. Then there's a little bit more boring stuff. And then suddenly Tom Cruise is in a biplane, 40,000 feet up in the air, two biplanes flying along, and he's trying to get in one and eject the pilot. And he's standing on the wings and, all sorts of stuff. It still hasn't overtaken Lilo and Stitch. It still hasn't done as well. It's done okay. Worldwide, it's just about paid for itself. But really, there's still some countries where it hasn't opened yet.
Okay.
But honestly, not good. But if you were talking about action, adventure, shoot 'em up,
Yeah.
explosions, all the rest of it, the scene in the submarine is the best action scene I've seen in quite a while. It's the most genuinely tense action scene. I genuinely was gripping the arms of my seat, thinking, "You are in a sinking submarine. You are, 30,000 feet down. I don't know how deep you are. You've got to there's an ice, you're in the Antarctic, so there's an ice cover. How the heck are you going to get out of this one? And I'm not going to tell you how he does, but that was just as genuine tense scenes I've seen in a long time. And it was fantastic. So Lilo and Stitch is number 2. But now Lilo and Stitch is a live action Disney remake of the cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay. Guess what's number 1?
Oh, I don't know.
We have a live action remake
Oh, another
of
one.
a cartoon.
Wow.
But this time not Disney. So
Okay.
we've been moaning about Disney. I've been moaning about Disney. Sorry, I've been moaning about Disney taking their old back catalogue and making them into live action films. They've done it with just about everything you can think of now.
Yeah.
And Lilo and Stitch has probably been the most successful. But they did it a few weeks ago with Snow White, and you went back and watched the original and said, yeah, the original was great. So DreamWorks in 2010 brought out a children's film based on a very popular children's book called How to Train Your Dragon.
Mm.
And this was a fantastic animated film. It was about an hour and a half. It told the story of a Viking village that was being terrorized by dragons. And if you could kill a dragon, your sort of status in the village. You became a hero in the village. And the young boy, we met a young boy. He's the chief's son. He wants to kill a dragon, and he goes out of the village into the countryside, and he meets a kind of wounded dragon. And instead of killing him, these two become friends. Much to the horror of the people. How can you be friends with a dragon? These dragons are destroying our village every night. But he learns to fly on the back of the dragon. He learns to tame it, and eventually, and I think probably no spoilers, 2009. Everybody becomes friends with the dragon. Okay. And this was a really, really lovely animated cartoon. It ran for about an hour. It spawned 2 sequels. There was a short-lived TV series.
Mm.
There's a new book being published by the author of these stories. It was great. How to Train Your Dragon was a perfectly wonderful, enjoyable, really well animated film
Yeah.
about a young boy befriending a dragon.
Yeah, I love those.
We now have How to Train Your Dragon live action. But get this, the dragon is still animated. Because, of course, there are no such live action dragons, are there?
Oh, they couldn't get a real
A
one.
live action dragon. Unless they find one somewhere, or David Attenborough comes up with one. So we still, in the middle of a live action remake, have got an animated dragon. Now, as a fan of the animated film, I was sat there thinking, what is the point of this? What is the point of this? It is virtually a shot-for-shot remake, except that it's half an hour longer. More scenes of different characters, more flying scenes. They've stretched it out. That does include the end credits, so it's probably about 25 minutes longer because the end credits are about 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was thinking, I love the cartoon. What is the point of it? What am I doing? Why am I bothering? But for anyone who hasn't seen the cartoon, I think they will love this. So if you are not familiar, if you were born after 2010, and maybe you've never seen How to Train Your Dragon, the animated version, I think you're going to love this. Okay. Because it's really enjoyable. I mean, I was sat there thinking, why am I bothering? This is a really good film. This is a really well-made film. It's funny. There's some interesting characters. The special effects are absolutely fantastic, But for me, this is a waste of time. I would much rather be sat at home watching the animated version. For people who haven't seen the animated version and want to take their kids to the cinema this weekend, be warned, it's over 2 hours. Okay. But it's really enjoyable for people who don't know it. So
Okay.
that's my conundrum when reviewing this film.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same story in places. It's a virtual shot for shot remake. The dialogue is the same. The music is the same. Everything is the same. And I'm sat there thinking, this is such a waste of my time. And then I thought, hang on, if there are people here who haven't seen the animated film, they're probably enjoying this. So let's be fair. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
I don't know if DreamWorks will now go on and do live action versions of some of their other animated stuff, like Shrek or whatever. We are told that they are going to do a sequel to How to Train Your Dragon, which I guess will be based on the animated film that was called How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Presumably.
Number two. Yeah, so I'm guessing that. But really? Seriously? Nathan, this is all about money. And once again, for me, this smacks of the lack of originality in Hollywood. Look at the top 10. We've got How to Train Your Dragon remake, Lilo and Stitch remake, Mission Impossible part of a series, Ballerina part of a series, Karate Kid remake part of a series, Final Destination part of a series. You know?
Yeah.
Now we do have some originals in there, but it's interesting that the most original films in there are those two really low-key, low-budget films, The Ballad of Wallace Island and The Salt Path,
Mm.
that we've just been singing the praises of. Okay? But there is a lack of originality in Hollywood. I mean, you and I need to come up with some ideas for new scripts and films. We can make a fortune just by submitting an original idea, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so there you go. So that's the cinema.
Yeah.
Um, and we will record a little video a bit later on that people can see where we'll recommend three films and give you one to avoid.
Mm.
I just want to mention one other film that I think, and I may be wrong, and you can pick me up on this, okay? Never make prophecies, but I'm going to. This might be number one next week.
Okay.
Okay. Might go straight in at number one. I don't know. It probably will.
Well, this is
So
very intriguing.
2009, director Danny Boyle, who would be most famous to a lot of people for the guy who created and directed the opening ceremony of the London Olympics, which, as we know, is spectacular. But he's made a
Mm.
number of great films. Sunshine, Slumdog Millionaire was one of his films. Yesterday, the film without a world that imagined a world without the Beatles, that's one of his. So in 2009, he came out with a film called 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later envisaged a world where COVID basically had happened before it happened. It's really interesting. I was watching it the other day, and on the DVD, there's some documentaries where scientists are being talked to. And sorry, this is 2002. I do beg your pardon. This is 2002. And these scientists are saying, we think that one day soon there will be a worldwide pandemic. And you're watching this. This was recorded in 2002. Look what happened a few years later
Yeah.
with COVID. Really interesting. So this film envisaged a worldwide pandemic. The pandemic turned people into marauding monsters. The film was called 28 Days Later. It was most noticeable for the fact that the opening scenes. So Cillian Murphy, great actor, wakes up in hospital in London,
Okay.
central London, and he looks out the window and there's nobody. The streets are absolutely deserted. He walks out of the hospital, he walks over Westminster Bridge up towards Parliament, absolutely deserted. He walks through up the Mall, nobody, no cars, not a soul in sight. He walks up to Piccadilly Circus, and they filmed that for real. And they filmed it very early on a Sunday morning by getting the police to block certain streets. It caused traffic chaos
I can
because
imagine.
and also they had to film it very quickly because the police said we can only close a certain amount of roads in central London for a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
because we've got traffic building up. But when you see him walking across Westminster Bridge, when you see him walking around Piccadilly Circus, when you see him walking up the Mall, that's all real. That was all done for real. Absolutely deserted. So that was the first film. It was called 28 Days Later. And he meets up with a group of survivors of the plague, and they have to battle with plague victims. Then a film came out a few years later, 2009, called 28 Weeks Later. So we had 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. Now, by this stage, the pandemic has died down. People from other countries, notably America, have come in and taken over Britain. The Brits are under quarantine, but survivors of the pandemic are being rehoused and life is slowly getting back to normal. However, there are still a few plague victims out there who begin to spread the plague again. So, and it finished actually with the plague being spread to Paris. So that was 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. We all assumed they're both great films. They're both absolutely science fiction horror classics. They are really good films of the genre. We all assumed that the next film would be called 28 Months Later. It wasn't. In fact, we had to wait from 2009 till now to see 28 years later.
Huh.
And I saw this week. I was so pleased to be in the cinema with air conditioning because, as you know, the weather's terrible.
Yeah.
And 28 years later is set 28 years later, where the whole of Britain has become a quarantined island. Nobody is allowed in, nobody is allowed out. And if you're a survivor of this dreadful plague, you just have to fend for yourself. So we meet a group of survivors that have taken refuge on Holy Island. They figure the safest place to be to stop people who've got the plague getting to us is on an island. There's a causeway across. They go across this causeway from time to time to forage for food, to forage for supplies, and so on. And the film features on one little boy who hears that on the mainland there's a doctor and his mum isn't very well, and he is determined to get his mum to the doctor, despite the dangers of the fact that the mainland has got plague ravaged people crawling all over it. Okay, I really enjoyed it. I hope my brother's not listening to this because my brother's a massive fan of these films, and he messaged me and said, "I don't even know whether you want to like it or not. I don't want to know any." But I really enjoyed this. It's a good film. I think, and you can pick me up on this. I think next week, 28 years later, will be the box office number one.
Okay.
We'll see. It's
Yeah.
a really good horror film. Yeah,
Oh,
really good sci-fi horror film.
okay. Well, that's our films this week. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Andy.
my
Plenty to catch
pleasure.
up on, but I think we've basically covered the top 10, haven't we? Along with number 25, which is that ocean documentary, which sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, you need to see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be seen. See it on the big screen if you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well,
Yeah.
we better wrap up there because we've
Okay.
run out of time. But
Sure.
thank you
No
so much,
problem.
Andy, for joining me for
My
movie
pleasure.
reviews, and we look forward to speaking again soon.
Thanks, Nathan. God bless you, and God bless Pure. God bless everybody listening.